Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Not Your Mama's podcast. This is episode number 26, and this is the importance of sleep training. In this episode, we are speaking with Andi Metzler, who is a certified sleep sense consultant. Andi, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's such an honor to have you on. Can you give the audience a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. Thank you for having me, Christina. I've been, almost 6 years working with babies and big kids all the way through teaching them to be great sleepers. And of course, it all started with my own two kids who were horrible sleepers. Like that's why everybody gets into this. You had it rough with your kids. And so, long story short, I struggled on my own with my son, took forever to get him sleeping through the night. When I had my daughter, I vowed I was going to do it differently. It took some time before I got there, and I found a program and a coach, changed my life. And within a few months, I had gone out to Florida, got certified. And then a few months after that, quit my teaching job. And here we are 6 years later.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, we need people like you. I mean, I struggle still to this day with sleeping. I mean, it has gotten a little bit better, but my first son was like the worst. He would not sleep through the night, wake up screaming and crying all the time. It was quite a struggle. And what worked for me was this having him in the bed with me, I think maybe gave him a sense of security and stuff like that. But I would love to pick your brain on this subject. And what is a great sleeping routine for, let's say, newborns? And what's a great sleeping routine for, toddler kids?
Great question. And this goes all the way up to adults. We all thrive on having some sort of ritual before bed.
Yeah.
And so the point is to prepare our bodies and our brains for what's coming next so that we anticipate sleep. And so we all love that ritual. You can start it with a newborn and then all the way up. So first of all, with newborns, it's a little bit different. They go to bed later. There's going to be some flex on bedtimes all the way through infancy because you're so focused on awake time. How long has your baby been awake? Yeah. For the most part, our bodies want to go to bed and wake up within a 30-minute window so that we're always doing that same time and we get our body clock set. For a newborn, I would say the ideal bedtime routine is about 30 minutes. This may or may not include a feed. It just depends on how long it takes a baby to eat. And then you have somewhere between 5 and 7 steps that are happening in the same order every single night.
Okay.
If you're really wanting your child to have the security to fall asleep independently, I would put that feed in the middle of the bedtime routine.
Okay.
So for a newborn, it might look something like a bath or a wipe down. And then, maybe if you do any sort of lotion, massage, jammies, diaper, that whole thing, the feed, swaddle, maybe a little bit of singing, and then, into a little bit of drowsiness, and then into the bassinet or wherever they're sleeping. And then as the older a baby gets, the earlier you put that feed to just give them the security. But you really want the same steps every single night, the time frame about 30 minutes. And when you get into the toddler years, maybe a little bit longer just because they're chatty, but maybe 10 more minutes, 30 to 40 minutes. And at this point, one of the biggest, pieces of advice I could give about a toddler's bedtime routine is pick the number of books you're going to read and never change it.
Oh, yeah.
Like that piece of advice, and then making sure the bath is never more than 10 minutes is going to be what keeps you in that 30 to 40 minute bedtime routine.
Yeah. So I have a question. How do you get a kid to sleep through the night?
It's about teaching them to fall asleep without relying on something external. And so that something external might be a feed, a pacifier, I've had babies or children that need to like touch mom's hair or something, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
We might need whatever it is external that they need, which would be called a sleep prop. We're trying to get them to learn to be comfortable without that. And so once they're out of the newborn phase, making sure they're fully awake and alert when you put them to bed so that they're drifting off to sleep on their own. They're making that journey on their own. If they're not, let's say, for example, they're relying on the pacifier to get to sleep. 45-minute sleep cycle, pacifier might fall out. They then wake up, look for the pacifier to be able to get back to sleep. And so they can't link sleep cycles without whatever they had initially to fall asleep.
Yeah, I know. I know with my little one, I always have to like put the passy back in his mouth because I guess I'm making him have a sleep aid.
You
But
play the passy game all night. Yeah.
I know I do. I wake up and I'm like, oh, put the passy and go back to sleep. I mean, we're already leaps and bounds from my first one, but like, how do you train that? Like, what is like a trick that a mom can do? Like, to get the baby to like not have to have that passy? Like, do you rub the back or you just kind of drop them in there and you walk out for 5 minutes and come back in? Like, what's your philosophy on crying it out or
That's a great
whatever?
question on the crying, because most babies are going to have some form of protesting. And so
Yeah.
as a sleep consultant, what I do is I teach parents to interact with their child while they're on this learning curve. And
Okay.
so I want parents to reassure, to comfort their child. They might be in the room, they might be doing some form of leave and check. But when you're changing a lot about a way a child falls asleep, they're going to be frustrated. And I
Mhm.
really come from the camp of they're allowed to show their emotions, they're allowed to be frustrated. And I want parents to be there with them or supporting them in some way. But I teach families how to do it without overstimulating them. And it's that overstimulation that typically prevents them from getting comfortable falling asleep.
Can you give an example of overstimulation, like what that would look like?
Sure. So if you are constantly in there, touching them, talking to them, they're not going to find their journey into sleep. And
Yeah.
so backing away and giving a little bit of space, whether you're in the room or not, but just back away, give them an opportunity to do this. And
Yeah.
you might set a timer. Maybe it's a 3-minute timer, maybe it's a 10-minute timer, depending on your comfort level and the baby's age.
Yeah.
But you also have so much to look for in the day. Like, did they get too much daytime sleep, too little daytime sleep? Are they awake enough? You have to take in the whole picture.
Yeah. So with my oldest, he still sleeps in the bed with me.
Mhm.
How do you help parents transition from co-sleeping to independent in their room, not waking up in the middle of the night screaming like, "Where's mom?" Because he's like
Absolutely.
afraid because
And it's
that's
very
what
different for
happened.
a baby versus, I believe you said 4, right? Your
Yeah.
older son is 4. He said at 4 years old, it's much more about getting them comfortable and secure and boundary work. So they got to know where the boundary is and it needs to be crystal clear for them. And then they need to practice, practice, practice. It's like anything with parenting. So at this age, this preschool age, I do a lot to try to get them on board and excited. And it often works well when a third party comes in because it's like pleasing the teacher. At preschool, they do so much more than they're going to do for their parents. It's this
Yeah.
please the teacher deal. So I come in, get involved with the child. We do, good behavior charts and we do incentives and um, Zenimal is an amazing product, which is a meditation tool for kids this age. It's awesome. So there's all sorts of tips and tricks, but it's about consistency. It's about patience because this is not going to happen in like 2 or 3 nights with this age.
No, it's not.
And it's about very clear boundaries and reminding them regularly. My favorite tools for that are role play. Kids think it's hilarious when you pretend to be them and get in their bed and kind of walk them through the do's and don'ts. It's a kinesthetic and visual learning tool.
That's
And
fun.
then every single night I go through questions with them. I'll have the parents. Like, what do we do if I wake up in the middle of the night? Do I come out of the room and go to mom and dad's room or do I hug my blankie? Hug your blankie. How do you know when it's morning? My green light turns on. It's all about consistency.
Yeah. With that being said, do you I'm sorry, I'm kind of losing my train of thought here, but do you believe in like them picking out like their own night lights and things like that, like kind of like giving them that independence
Totally.
and
Yes.
that,
It's such a helpful trick. It's like in a way, we're kind of like stripping away all their power, right? So we need to put it back in there. And
yeah,
choices is the number one thing. So laying out 2 pairs of pajamas, they pick one. Laying out 4 books, they pick 2. And absolutely having something new, like the new night light or a new sleep buddy can be so helpful.
yeah. Kind of going back to what you were saying, like you kind of come in, you're the third party. If someone were to, want to work with you, do they have to be in the area or do you do things like virtually,
All
to kind
virtually.
of help? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do in-person stuff
Okay.
in the Ventura and Santa Barbara area, but yeah, I have families in Amsterdam and Kuwait and, in Michigan. It's crazy, but I guess COVID opened up the world, right?
Right? I know it is crazy. The technology and stuff. I mean, I think, yeah, when COVID happened, a lot of people, I think, sat back and analyzed their life and, how can we do things differently? Some people lost a lot, some people gained a lot. I mean, I feel like we're still on this roller coaster ride and it's not over yet.
No, it's not. We're all still learning how to make it work.
Awesome. So what other things do you think parents should know, whether it's for a toddler or for a newborn? What are the important keys that someone should know when doing their whole sleep training endeavor?
I would say the most important thing is to know your child's sleep needs. And that is something, as a new mom, I had no idea how much kids need to sleep, how much babies need to sleep. So know how many hours. Like most kids, newborns are a little different, but babies and older kids need between 10 and 12 hours of nighttime sleep. And a lot of them aren't getting that. And if it's not consolidated, unfragmented sleep, they are not getting the amazing benefits of sleep. Our bodies, our kids continue to learn, their brains process what they've learned, their emotions regulate. Like the list of the magic that happens when our kids sleep is phenomenal. So know how much how much kids need to sleep, but also know how much time they should be awake before their bodies need to sleep.
Speaking of that, what I had a question. What do you feel like? So should like my 4-year-old, almost 4-year-old, still be napping? Because when he naps, then he doesn't go to sleep until like 11 o'clock at night. But when he doesn't nap, I can get him to bed by like 7:30, and then he'll sleep, all the way through until about like 6:30. Like, should he still be napping?
Absolutely. So most kids stop napping. Yeah, it's that most kids stop napping between 3 and 4, but there are some 4-year-olds that are going to nap. If that happens, because this is what most families look for. They're like, well, my child still falls asleep in the afternoon. He's super tired, so I shouldn't get rid of the nap. If bedtime is a battle, or your child isn't getting the necessary amount of sleep at night, it's time to cap the nap or stop the nap. Nighttime sleep is much more important. So yes, I would absolutely, in your case, either cap the nap or drop the nap so that he is going to bed at 7:30, sleeping to 6:30, 11 hours of nighttime sleep, amazing. If you cut that and put him to bed at 11 because his body's not built up enough sleep pressure, he's not getting all of that amazingness that he needs from nighttime sleep.
Yeah. And what's your philosophy on like a sleep aid, like a kid's like melatonin or like a sleep spray? Like, do you think that hinders a kid, or what are your thoughts? Because sometimes I give my kids some sleep spray.
What is it when you say sleep spray? Like I have definite thoughts about melatonin. What's in sleep spray?
So I have this, my friend sells this Arbonne Sleep Well vegan sleep spray.
What's in it?
It has chamomile and valerian root and
it's so probably just like calming oils.
Yeah, it's like calming. I mean, and it has, just like I give like a little half of spray, and sometimes it really helps him like relax,
Oh gosh, yeah. Depending on each individual essential oil, like, you'd have to like do your research, make sure it's all safe, all that good stuff. It's probably maybe going to help them relax, but it's not going to like get them to sleep and keep them asleep, most likely. So yeah, if it works, melatonin, I don't recommend, and there's 2 reasons for kids. The first is that essentially melatonin might get your child to sleep, but it's not going to help them sleep through the night. So you're kind of putting a Band-Aid on the problem instead of teaching them to fall asleep comfortably so that they can get back to sleep when they wake up.
Yeah.
The second thing is because it's not approved by the FDA, it's not regulated by the FDA, you might think you're doing 3 milligrams, but really it could be much more than that. And so you really don't know what you're getting.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes melatonin increases nightmares.
Interesting. I've not heard that, but I really wonder. The thing with melatonin is there's not a lot of research on it.
Yeah.
And there is some thoughts that it could affect the pituitary gland, but not proven.
Yeah, it isn't proven. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I've kind of relied on this, but I mean, he
Yeah.
can fall asleep without it. And it kind of brings me back, like, what is your take on like the iPad? Like laying in bed with an iPad? Like that's
It's like
obviously
the worst thing for sleep for like
right. I
for
know.
all
It's like
everybody.
what can you do to like replace that? Because I feel like kids
The
are so
Zenimal.
attached to these damn iPads.
Yeah. And for adults too, like ideally, and I don't do this for myself, ideally, there's no screen time 1 to 2 hours before falling asleep at night because the blue light exposure lowers our melatonin levels. Our
Okay.
melatonin helps us get to sleep, not stay asleep necessarily, but get to sleep. And so, an ideal sleep environment is a dark room, very cool, 68 to 72 degrees,
Yeah.
and quiet, like pitch black, no blue light. So I would say stay off of iPads. 100%. It's got to be moved to another time of day.
Yeah.
Allowing your, this sounds so cheesy, but if you teach your child to have a great relationship with sleep, like they can fall asleep without the iPad. They can fall asleep independently on their own and comfortably and sleep the appropriate amount of time. It is the best gift you can ever give them, something that's going to
Totally.
benefit them for life. So ditch the iPad, put a boundary on it. Like we only do it after nap or we only do it after school or whatever.
Mhm.
And the Zenimal is a child kind of like it's a little turtle and it's a kid can manipulate it, but it has no screen. So there's no blue light exposure and it's got bedtime stories. It's got meditation for kids and
What
this
is this
ritual.
again?
It's called a Zenimal,
As
Zen.
oh, a Zenable. Okay, cool.
Zenimal, like animal, but Zen,
Oh,
Zenimal.
okay, cool. And
Because
how
our
does it work
founder's from
again?
Long Beach, so it's close to you.
How does it work again? Because it's like a,
I
can you
wish I had it
explain it?
with me. Both my kids have one. So it's a little turtle and it's got like a silicone cover over it and
Okay.
a little card. So there are 9 meditations on each card. So your kid can turn it on, choose the meditation they want, deep breathing, empathy, sleep. Like there's all sorts. That's great for the whole day. Um, and you can incorporate it into your bedtime routine. So your
Okay.
child is learning to get comfortable and calm as a part of the bedtime routine.
Yeah, that sounds good. And it's like a turtle. That's really cool. I gotta
Yeah, it's
check that
really
out
great.
because I need to remove the iPad because I do have an issue with the iPad because it's kind of like, okay, let's lay down. You have your iPad and
Sure, it
then,
becomes a crutch, but it's actually very stimulating to their mind and it's making it harder to fall asleep because of the
yeah.
melatonin.
Yeah, sometimes I'm like, God, take it away. You got to go to sleep. And then he'll cry and then he'll lay there and then he'll go to sleep. But
Sure.
I
No,
mean,
those
it's
changes can be hard to make.
oh yeah, totally. I think the iPad's probably one of the hardest things because it's so addicting. And like, we're addicted to our phones. I mean, we got to lead by example. I mean, us laying in bed scrolling through the phone isn't going to be
Right?
a
I
good
know.
example for
We're
them
like,
because
get
they're
off
like,
your
"Well, you do it."
iPad. Yeah.
um no, this is all great information. So before I get into my 4 questions I have for you, is there anything else you'd like to touch on that we may have missed about sleeping and what parents should know?
I think just knowing that if somebody in your family isn't getting great sleep, you can absolutely make changes. And I think parents often feel that once they're out of that baby phase, they've missed the boat and they
Yeah.
haven't. And you can make changes to your own sleep. There's so many adult sleep consultants out there. So if you're struggling with sleep, reach out. There's help, whether you're doing it yourself, reading a book, you're hiring somebody. It takes a village. And I think sleep is something that's overlooked when we have babies. It's like breastfeeding and swaddling and all the things we learn
Yeah.
about, and we don't learn about sleep. And then it rocks your world. So
Oh
just
yeah.
do something about it if what's going on in your house isn't working for you.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I know when I had my first son, it totally rocked my world. And I think I only got, I mean, now I feel like I'm getting more sleep, but I'd only get up to like 4 hours of sleep a night, if that.
Oh my gosh, no, you need 7 to 9. 7 to 9.
I know. Yeah, no, I'm literally running on fumes like every day.
I'm gonna put you to bed. Like, you gotta go
I
to
know. I
sleep.
need you. I need you in my life.
Give yourself a bedtime. Like we need the same structure as adults. Like I make my
Yeah.
phone go off at 9:15 and it's like, okay, you're like no more screen time. You're preparing your body for sleep. It's like you just have to create the habit.
Yeah. Well, I feel like as women, like we could be doing one thing and we're thinking about like a 50 other things in our head that we have to get done. And it's like, sometimes it's hard to like shut it down, like
Yeah.
I can't go to sleep. There's laundry here, or, oh, I needed to work on this thing. And, oh, the house is a mess, or, ah.
Exactly. I get you.
It's like, I don't know, but God made us multitaskers for a reason,
I know.
Okay, so I have 4 questions that I have for all my first time guests. And my first question to you is, who and what inspires you?
I find inspiration from travel, and I feel a little dead inside because I don't get to do it much anymore. But I think that's one of the things. Before I had kids, I lived abroad multiple times, and I feel so inspired by seeing something new or a new way of doing something and getting out of my element.
Yeah. That actually reminds me, because I, before COVID and I had my son, we would travel a lot with him. What advice do you have for parents traveling with young kids? Because I know it totally knocks the kids off the sleep schedule. And that's one of the reasons why I'm in the boat I'm in terms of him sleeping. Like, what advice do you have for parents traveling with children? And
for sure, that's a great question. And I have a whole blog post about like traveling with kids. I have another one on how do you stay in a hotel room with kids. There's 2 things I would say. Oh, there's hard to pick, but a slumber pod. Get a slumber pod if your child is sleeping in their own sleep space. It's the best invention and my favorite thing to travel with.
I've never heard of that. A slumber.
It's like a sleep. It covers a pack and play or a toddler mattress.
Oh, okay.
It is made of. It's all safety approved blackout fabric. It's made by a mom and daughter duo that were on Shark Tank. It's blackout fabric. So you could be in a hotel room, have it over your pack and play or toddler mattress, and you could have the lights on, be on your phone, and they can't see the light.
Oh,
awesome.
And
it also serves as a visual barrier because having, seeing the adults in the room makes it really hard for a child to fall asleep. So slumber pod. And then I would say staying consistent 80% of time with the schedule while you're traveling and not pushing it much past that. And if you're doing big time zone changes, getting sunlight within the first 10 minutes of waking up to help set the circadian rhythm is huge. And then you jump into the new time zone as quickly as possible.
Okay. Yeah. Those are good little tips. Okay. So back to my questions again. Okay. So question number 2 is, what is something you wished you knew when you were younger?
The comparison is the thieves of joy, or whatever that saying is. I think as I'm into my 40s now, I'm just realizing, like, stop comparing myself to others.
Yeah. Yeah.
Only compare myself to my past self. And
exactly. Yeah. You can only, I know sometimes we get stuck on comparing, and especially the world we live in now. And it's hard not to.
Social media in your face all the time.
Yeah. I know. I wish I knew that when I was younger too.
Trying to teach my kids. I don't think they're listening.
Okay. So question number 3 is, what's the essential part of your daily routine?
Ooh, my morning miracle, which I read the book, Morning Miracle. I get up before everybody else and I just start my day with a meditation, journaling with gratitude, and kind of some visualization with what I want. And my biggest takeaway from doing that is that I'm not the nicest person when I start my day by serving others. I need to serve myself first.
Yeah. And that's good that you recognize that. And I've heard of the morning miracle. It's like you wake up, you meditate, you journal, you work out.
And I don't do I just took what I liked, but I did it for 30 days. And then I took what I liked, and sometimes I do it for an hour and sometimes I do it for 15 minutes, just giving myself something for me at the beginning of the day.
Yeah. I know. I always like go to bed with the thought, like, I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. and I'm going to like get my shit together. And then it's like the kid wakes up at 5 and crying. And then I'm like, just too tired, or, I always.
Well, if you're going on 4 hours of sleep, like,
it's a lot better now.
7 hours and then do the morning miracle.
Yeah. Wait till you get a little older. And then my last question to you is, the best advice you've ever received.
Oh my goodness. The best advice I ever received. That's a hard one, Christina. I think when I think of good advice, I think of my dad, but I don't know if he said any, you know what, this is what he told me when I was a kid. If there's something that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, leave. And I think it's always kind of stuck with me.
That is a good,
don't get into trouble.
You feeling the vibes, get out of there.
Yeah.
Something bad's going to happen.
Yeah.
I know. I remember that when I was younger, I'd like be hanging out somewhere and I'd be like, I just don't feel safe. I got to get out of here.
Yes. And I think essentially what it is just like trust your gut feelings because it means something. And I really believe that we have intuition.
Oh yeah, we definitely do.
Women. And so like, I think a lot of times we push it down and don't listen to it.
Yeah. There's been plenty of times where that has bitten me in the butt, and mom intuition is like so real and so true. Like I remember I had this babysitter when I had my first son, and she would always be at the house when I was there during the day, but I let her at night so I can go out with my husband or whatever. And I just had a feeling about her. And of course that feeling was right. I came home and she was like drugged out on my couch.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I had to like shake her and I was like really traumatized. It was very, I found her like on a reputable website. I'm not going to give the website name or anything like that, but I spoke to them and she got kicked off the thing, and it was pretty crazy. But your mom gut is real. If you have a bad feeling about someone, just get them out of your house and just don't have them watch your kids, don't learn the hard way.
Feel like you need to apologize because we always rationalize it with, oh, that's going to be embarrassing or I shouldn't,
Yeah. I'm like, who am I? She hasn't done anything, but I just had this feeling. But I kept suppressing it,
I totally agree.
Yeah. And then you learn the hard way, but God bless her. It's fine. You know what I mean? Everything's good. I just hope she gets the help that she needs because she obviously was struggling with something.
Right.
But anyway, thank you so much again for coming on. Are there any last words? And I want to let the audience know that I have all of her information, Andi's information down below in the show notes. If you would like to reach out to her and work with her, if you have any questions on sleeping and your children. But do you have anything last words before we go?
I think if anyone has any questions, a great way is to hop on my Instagram page on Tuesdays. I do a Q&A in my stories, and it's a great way to just get a quick question answered. So start there if you have a little sleep question.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Andi.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you guys for listening to another episode of Not Your Mama's Podcast, and I will see you next week. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Not Your Mama's Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one.